It's the ACC Tournament edition of the Morning Pitt here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We've made it to Wednesday. We've made it to the middle of the week. More importantly, we've made it to the ACC Tournament. Pitt Panthers getting set today to play against Georgia Tech in the 2:30 game, their first game of the ACC Tournament. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited that it's finally here. This one-and-done format, the intensity, the pressure, it's all on this team right now. And they played under pressure last week. They played under pressure for the last 2 months. And now it's coming to a head where for the first time in probably about 7 years, it actually matters what happens here. You know, we always knew over the last 6 seasons that they weren't going to go on a run in the ACC tournament. And I mean, chances are against them going on a run in the ACC tournament this year. But there are things to play for, and there's something to accomplish in Greensboro this week. And it all starts this afternoon. Game is tentatively scheduled for a 2:30 tip-off between Pitt and Georgia Tech. That depends, of course, how long the first game of the day, the noon tip-off, between the 8-9 game between Syracuse and Wake Forest, depends on how long it takes for that game to go, and see what if that runs over, that's going to push back the 2:30 start time. But as long as everything gets done in a tidy fashion between Syracuse and Wake Forest, we'll get this Pitt Georgia Tech game going at 2:30. And of course, as I've said, all week and last week, we'll be live after the game for a Panther-Lair post-game show right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm excited for it. We had a lot of fun. I mean, it wasn't a good game on Saturday night, but we had a lot to talk about on the post-game show at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about tonight. So make sure you tune in youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the Panther-Lair post-game show. Oh, how am I going to know what time you start? We don't even know what time the game is going to start, so I don't know what time the post-game show is going to start. But you can make sure you don't miss it if you click subscribe and turn on the notifications. As we always say, you turn on notifications, you get an alert sent to your phone whenever we go live, so you won't miss the post-game show. Whatever happens this afternoon, win or lose, blowout win, or heartbreaking defeat, we're going to have a lot to talk about. And you don't want to miss the post-game show right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure, of course, like this video, as we always ask, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like button's easy to hit. Subscribe button is just as easy. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So Pitt gets a rubber match. It's not a rubber match. It's the third game of the season against Georgia Tech. The Panthers beat the Yellow Jackets both in Atlanta and in Pittsburgh. First in Atlanta and then in Pittsburgh. Neither game was a blowout. One was an 11-point win. One was an 8-point win. The 11-point win on the road, 8-point win at home. The home win sort of served as a bounce back from the loss at Virginia Tech. And really, the win at Georgia Tech served as a bounce back from Pitt's last 2-game losing streak. When they lost to Clemson at home and then lost at Duke 3 days later, they went to Georgia Tech and won to sort of snap that losing streak. Now here they are in the midst of a losing streak for the third time this season. And they've only had 3 losing streaks this season, which I think is somewhat notable. They had the 3-game losing streak earlier in the year with West Virginia, Michigan, and VCU after they opened the season 1-0, beating UT Martin. They lost 3 in a row. They had the 2-game losing streak, Clemson and Duke, and now they're on a 2-game losing streak right now with Notre Dame in Miami. But Pitt has defeated Georgia Tech in both meetings this season, and I think it's a common sports, I don't want to say a sports cliche, but we often say it. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in the same season. I think that's sort of commonly accepted. I feel like it gets said more often in football, particularly the NFL. I think it's tough in the NFL when you meet a division opponent in the playoffs and they say, well, if you went 2-0 in the regular season, it's tough to beat them a third time. And I guess that's true. I don't know if it's not. I mean, it probably depends on how evenly matched your teams are. If Tom Brady were to play the Dolphins 3 times with the Patriots, I'm pretty sure he had a pretty good, a high likelihood of success in all 3 meetings. I don't think it happens all that often, though. As a matter of fact, I was looking, first of all, I mean, you have to get the right draw. You don't play everybody twice. And, as the ACC, regular season expanded to 20 games just in the last few years. So even before that, there were even fewer teams that you played twice in the regular season. And then you need to get the right draw to meet them again in the ACC tournament. So they actually played Boston College 3 times last year. They went 1-1 in the regular season and then lost the ACC tournament game by like 20 points. The last time Pitt went 2-0 against the team and then faced them again in the conference tournament was Syracuse in the 2015-16 season. Pitt went 2-0 against the Orange in the regular season and then beat them in the ACC tournament 7 years ago. To go back beyond that, the last time I could find that Pitt went 2-0 against a team in the regular season and then faced them again in the conference tournament was the 2008-09 season. The number 1 seed team, the Elite 8 team, they went 2-0 against West Virginia that season in the regular season, and then they lost to them in the first game of the Big East tournament. That team got bounced in the Big East tournament right off the bat. Against West Virginia, who they defeated twice in the regular season. I kept looking back through the schedules, and I got to about 1997-98, and I gave up because at that point they were only having 1 or 2 repeat opponents in the regular season, so the likelihood was very, very low. So if you go back to 97-98, you're talking about 25 years, 26 years or so. Of let's call it an even quarter century of games, and it only happened twice where Pitt went 2-0 against a team in the regular season and met them again in the conference tournament. So it's not like something that happens all that often. Being on the other side of it, actually 4 years ago, Pitt went 0-2 against Syracuse in the regular season. I think it was actually it was Jeff Capel's first year. I think they went 0-2 against Syracuse in the regular season and then lost to the Orange in the ACC tournament. Yeah, that was 2018-19. That was Jeff Capel's first year. Before that, you go back to the 2006-2007 season. Pitt went 0-2 against Marquette in the regular season and then beat Marquette in the Big East tournament. And then before that, the 2000-2001 season, Notre Dame beat Pitt twice in the regular season, but then Pitt beat the Irish in the Big East tournament. So you don't have a lot of instances of this happening. Over a quarter century, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the last 25 years where Pitt has been involved in a regular season series where one team won both games, and then the two teams met again in the conference tournament. And Pitt has done it twice in the last 25 years, and they're 1-1 in the conference tournament games. Pitt has been defeated twice, or I guess 3 times. In the last 25 years, they've had 3 instances where they went 0-2 against a team and met again in the conference tournament. They're 2-1 in those conference tournaments. So not a lot to draw on there. This is a long way of saying not a lot to draw on there, but I will say this though. All right. If you listen to that long rambling, utterance of dates and names and all this different thing, probably jogged your memory on a couple of things. You probably remembered something about, this season or that season, had a memory of this, a memory of that. The last time Pitt went 2-0 against a team in the regular season and then met them again in the conference tournament, 2015-16 was Syracuse, where they won. They won the ACC tournament game against Syracuse. Why do I highlight that? Why do I draw a circle around it? Because how many times this year have we talked about things happening for the first time since 2015-16? Like, in the last 7 years, or it's been 7 years, we've said that phrase over and over and over again. It was the last time they had a winning record overall. It was the last time they had a winning record in the ACC. It was the last time they made the NCAA tournament. It was the last time they were even remotely in contention for the conference or finishing in the top half of the conference. We date so many things back to the 2015-16 season. And now there's another one. As Pitt has a chance to sweep Georgia Tech and beat them 3 times in the season. Something, as we say, they haven't done against anyone in the last 7 years. The games against Georgia Tech this year, I think, were probably tougher than I remembered. I think they were closer than I remembered. They came down to the end. They ended up, they were, an 11-point game and an 8-point game, but played closer than that. Tighter. The game at Pitt was a 33-32 game at halftime. The game in Atlanta, I think, was, equally close. Yeah, Pitt was up 4 at halftime. before they ended up winning by 11. Georgia Tech hit 12 three-pointers in the game in Atlanta, grabbed 14 offensive rebounds, and scored 19 second-chance points. That's tough. I mean, we know how tough that can be to overcome. Meanwhile, Pitt only made 6 three-pointers, shot 30% from beyond the arc. But Jamarius Burton and Nike Sabandi had huge games. Burton went, I think, 6 of 12 from inside the arc, doing a lot of driving, a lot of getting into the paint, shot 7 free throws in that game. Sabandi came off the bench, was 3 of 6 from 3, made all 4 of his free throws, shot 7 of 12 from the floor. Those two guys had a huge impact on that game, whereas the game in Pittsburgh, it was the whatchamacallit? It was the Nelly Cummings show. Nelly Cummings made 3 3-pointers, went 7 of 7 from the line. That was the game where Federico went 8 of 8 from the line. A huge performance from Federico. Blake Hinson, 5 of 9 from 3. Burton put up another 12 points, another solid game for him. But maybe the most notable thing out of that game against Georgia Tech in Pittsburgh, what was notable to me at that point, because I hadn't paid as close attention to Georgia Tech's box scores, was how short the bench was for the Yellow Jackets and how thin Josh Pastner played it. I mean, 7 players for Georgia Tech got on the court, but one of them played 7 seconds. So he basically played 6 guys, and one of them, Lance Terry, only played 14 minutes because he had foul trouble. Remember, he had like 4 fouls in the first half or 3 fouls in the first half. He might have had 4 in the first half, actually. It was ridiculous. I went and talked to one of the Georgia Tech writers, and I said, "What does he just Pastner not like this guy? Like, what gives here? Why?" So Lance Terry was neutralized. He went 0 of 4 from the floor, and only played 14 minutes because he fouled out. He was in so much foul trouble during that game. But the bench is tight, and you saw it yesterday if you watched the game against Florida State. They played, they went basically. I mean, they played 6 guys. It's not like, they effectively only played 6. No, they only played 6 guys. And the 6th guy, the guy who came off the bench, played 7 minutes. The starters played 40, 39, 37, and 37. 5 guys playing 37 plus minutes, and they're turning around and playing another game in less than 24 hours. That game ended at whatever time, 4 o'clock, 4:15, something like that. And they're going to turn around and get back on the court and play again in less than 24 hours. Now, these are all, young men in the peak of their physical development, and they should have no problem turning around and playing like this. I remember when we used to ask Jamie Dixon about playing multiple games in multiple days. He would say these guys all did it at the AAU level. These guys, would play game after game, day after day at AAU, and it was no big deal. We always make such a big deal out of it. And he was right, but these guys have also played 30-some games. And these guys are also playing 37 minutes. And I don't know if the AAU kids were out there logging 37, 39 minutes on consecutive days, which is what Josh Pastner is going to ask his guys to do. Now, against Florida State, they went 8 of 27 from 3, not exactly that 12-3 performance that they had against Pitt earlier this season. Defended the 3 well, only allowed Florida State to make 6 threes. But this game is going to come down to Pitt doing what Pitt does, which is following Jamarius Burton, following Blake Hinson, and you'd like to get ACC 6th Man of the Year Nike Sabandi involved here and have him provide that spark that he's become so well known for. Throughout the conference, he's been known as that, what do I call him? Spark Sabandi. That nickname never caught on because it kind of faded after a few games. But he had a stretch there where he was just dominant coming off the bench, and one of the biggest games he had was when he scored 21 at Georgia Tech. He needs to have a game like that. He needs to have that kind of impact. The rebounding will be interesting. Like I say, they had 14 offensive rebounds in the game in Atlanta. The game at Pittsburgh, they only had 3 offensive rebounds. Against Florida State yesterday, they had 7. Now, Florida State's a good rebounding team. They have a lot of size. They had 14 offensive rebounds themselves. But you can't let Georgia Tech get easy second chances. You can't give up a lot of second chance points. It has to be more like the game in Pittsburgh, where they give up 3 offensive rebounds and 4 second chance points, than it was, like the game in Atlanta, where they had 14 offensive rebounds and 19 second chance points. I think the lessons have been learned. right? I think the lessons of the last few games inform what Pitt needs to do here and what Pitt needs to focus on. They need to focus on defending out to the 3-point line. They can't let guys like Miles Kelly get hot from out there. They need to work to find their shots on the outside, and then they have to not get killed on the glass. You can get out-rebounded. You'd rather not, but you can get out-rebounded by a few. You can't get out-rebounded by 20. You can't give up a dozen plus offensive rebounds. It's going to be, I know they did it and they won in the game in Atlanta, but it's going to be tough to do it again. All right. I would say you don't want to play with that fire anymore. But, every game from here on out, it's going to be about Pitt being the best Pitt. Because the best Pitt was one of the best teams in the ACC, and for a stretch you could say was the best team in the ACC this season. When they're not playing as the best Pitt, they can run into trouble. And there are certain matchups that are going to give them trouble. There are certain, different teams have different personnel that's going to be a problem for them. Georgia Tech certainly looks like it's got something in Javon Franklin, the freshman forward, or excuse me, the senior forward. Sorry for I got his age mixed up, but he had a double-double against Florida State yesterday, 10 points and 19 rebounds. Had a good performance against Pitt, went for, 15 and 8, 6 of 7 from the floor, made 3 free throws. He had 4 assists, didn't turn the ball over, and blocked 2 shots. So, you're going to have to account for that. And Federico is going to have his work cut out for him trying to guard Franklin and defend against Franklin and score against Franklin. Federico, this was one of his best games, 14 points and 7 rebounds. And, 8 of his 14 points came from the free throw line in the game in Pittsburgh against Georgia Tech. But I don't hold that against him because to me that means he was being aggressive. He was not driving, but he was going at the basket and he was drawing contact and he was getting to the free throw line. He needs to be able to convert those plays for sure. He needs to be able to convert from the free throw line. But he was at least being active and not just sort of haphazard and random like he was at Miami on Saturday. So it's right there for Pitt. I know there's been a lot of talk about like Georgia Tech. Well, they're playing well. They're doing well. They've won 6 out of their last 7 and 7 out of their last 8 and all this stuff. But I look at their schedule, or 7 out of their last 9, excuse me. And those 7 out of 9 wins, and this is after they lost 9 in a row. They beat Notre Dame. They lost at Wake Forest. They beat Virginia Tech. That's a good win. Virginia Tech is a good win. They beat Florida Tech. They were playing Florida Tech on February 18th for some reason. They lost at Pitt. And then their most recent 4 wins, Louisville, Syracuse, Boston College, Florida State. So 7 out of the last 9 they've won. One of those has been what I would count as even something of a good win, a home win against Virginia Tech. And that's, Virginia Tech, who was, 18 and 13 this year, 8 and 12 in the ACC. So yes, Georgia Tech has stacked some wins, but nothing that you're exactly writing home about. Now, of course, the flip side, you could say, well, Pitt's last 5 wins were Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Florida State, and Louisville. But before that, they had North Carolina, they had Miami, they had Wake Forest. And as I was kind of putting that thought together about who Pitt has beat recently and this and that, and I kind of looked over the schedule, and it just hit me now. And maybe people have been talking about this, and I just haven't been paying attention when the conversation's happening. But Pitt played 7 games in February. One of those games was against a team with a winning record in ACC play. One of them. It was North Carolina on February 1st. So since February 1st, Pitt has 1 win against a team with a winning conference record. But they've only played 2 games against teams with winning conference records. It was the North Carolina game on February 1st, and it was the Miami game on Saturday. And so when we talk about why Pitt isn't getting the big bumps and why Pitt isn't, getting, more respect nationally and all that kind of stuff, they really didn't have many opportunities to build their resume through the month of February and into March. And then you add on to that the fact that They lost at Virginia Tech. Not great, but at least it's a road loss. And then Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a terrible loss for this team. And that's ultimately, if things go south and they don't make the NCAA tournament, and I still believe that they will, but if they don't, I mean, that's the thing you're going to look at. That's the game you're going to circle and say, this is where you screwed up. They've won 6 out of their last 9. Since February 1st, they've won 6 out of 9. Before that, you have 8 out of 11 that they won. They've won 8 out of their last 11, 6 out of their last 9 since February 1st. But only one of those was against a team, again, with a winning record in conference play. It was Carolina on the road. So they haven't had much in the way of resume builders or impressive wins. They haven't had much in the way of opportunity for resume builders and impressive wins. They're at a point now, though, where I almost want to say like it almost doesn't matter anymore. I mean, there seems to be a consensus that if they win a game, they'll be in. If they need to win 2, if they do win 2, if they beat Georgia Tech today and they then beat Duke tomorrow, I think they're absolutely in. They're a lock to get in. I think there's less. There should be less. I don't know the right way to say this. I almost like less concern about the NCAA tournament for this team, just because their goal right now is to go out and win games. And if they accomplish that goal, they'll get into the NCAA tournament. You know, every time you step on the court, your goal is to win games. Well, it just so happens that the goal of reaching the NCAA tournament coincides and overlaps with that goal of winning games. So go out and win games. You know, this is a Georgia Tech team that you should be able to beat. Might be by 10, might be by 2, might be by 15. I don't know. But you should be able to beat them. You've got the players to do it. You've got the experience to do it. You should be able to win this game. And that's what I expect to see. Either way, whatever happens this afternoon, we're going to talk about it on the Panther-Lair postgame. So make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. Should be an interesting conversation. I don't know what time it's going to start. I don't know what time the postgame is going to start. 4:30, 5 o'clock, somewhere around there. But either way, it will be lively. I think there's no question about that. We'll have some good conversation for sure. So make sure you tune in. We'd love to have your thoughts and comments and questions. If you've never been part of the postgame show or one of our live streams, what happens is there's a chat screen over here. You can put your comments in there, your questions in there, anything you want to say. You put it there, I read it, we interact, kind of have a back and forth. It's like call-in radio, just without, actually hearing your voice. You just type in your comment and I'll read it. And if you want me to affect a certain type of voice while I'm reading your comment, leave it in the notes and I'll do my best. If you want a Southern accent or British or something like that, it'll be terrible, but it could be amusing. Anyway, it should be a good hour or so of talk about this game after it happens, win or lose. And if they win and they go on and play Duke tomorrow, we'll do another live show after the Duke game tomorrow. And if they keep winning and they keep going, we will keep doing the live shows. So make sure you keep tuned in right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And of course, the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Got an article coming up this morning about a shirt that Blake Hinson wore on Monday and how that's a message to his team and to Pitt fans as well. So make sure you check out that article, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. All the coverage you need, football, basketball, recruiting, it's all there at Panther-Lair.com. And of course, there'll be a game thread going during the game today. Should be an interesting one. Just going to keep saying phrases like that. Should be an interesting one. Should be a fun one. Should be an entertaining one. It should be. That's what it should be. All right. Thanks for checking it out today. Hope it's been a good start to the week for you. We'll find out how the rest of the week's going to be this afternoon. We're going to learn a lot about what all of our weeks are going to look like. But like I said, we'll be back here to talk about it after the game. So make sure you tune in. Thanks for watching today. Hope you have a great Wednesday. We will talk to you after the game this afternoon right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.